Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas,
Hi, I'm Andy Semichuk.
and welcome to Law 101. And Law 101 is your guide to understanding the legal world, one case, one concept, and one conversation at a time. So, Mr. Andy, what is law and why does it matter?
Okay, first of all, great to be with you, Daniel, on this, our first episode.
Yes,
I hope that in the course of our work together, we'll be able to share some wonderful insights that people can use in terms of their lives and in terms of dealing with the legal world, which pretty much governs everything that we do. And I guess the place to start is to ask are, what is law? What is this all about?
yes,
And I guess the answer is pretty simple. It's the rules by which we live with one another, and the rules are based on fundamental documents, usually constitutions. And there's a fundamental choice we have in life. It's to either be ruled by laws or be ruled by individuals, some dictator or totalitarian person or whatever. And to the degree that law governs our interactions between each other, to that degree we can find freedom and comfort and safety. And so, basically, at its very fundamental level, laws are there to protect us, to keep us safe, and to help us conduct our lives with one another in a peaceful way without violence and without terror or without coercion. Um, uh, so it's a, shall we say, a cultured way of behaving with one another, a high, sophisticated way of dealing with life and life's challenges in terms of interrelationships between people.
definitely. To have a peaceful community, people. But before we go on to our discussion, well, I'm Daniel Lucas. I'm a podcast host of a lot of podcasts like Food 101, Book 101 Review, what else? Abstract Essay, and Geography 101. And of course, this is our latest podcast with Mr. Andy Chamichuk, Law 101.
Right. I'm Andy Semichuk. I'm a U.S. and Canadian immigration lawyer. I practice law at Pace Law Firm in Toronto, and I've been practicing for many decades, both in the United States and Canada. And I'm willing to spend time with Daniel and with the listeners to share some insights and to talk about this whole area of law with people who are interested.
Definitely. So, Mr. Andy, why does law matter?
Well, we've touched a little bit on it already, but basically, in the absence of law, what we have is a jungle, a society, a savage jungle where people attack each other and get what they want by uh, basically removing other people from whatever they want. For example, one of the ways that law governs us is to define the rules that that govern the relationship between one person and another. For example, if we didn't have laws, if you were driving your car on the street, you could drive whichever way you wanted in whatever direction you wanted, and pretty soon you'd have accidents all over as people were, crashing into each other. Another way to illustrate this would be if we didn't have laws, people flying in airplanes would be crashing into each other in the skies and at runways, at airports. If we didn't have laws, criminals would be able, gangsters and criminals would be able to basically come into your house, take everything that you have, and leave you homeless and you know penniless. So laws are what are the sinews of a civilized society. That's sort of a summary way of putting it.
Yes. So, Mr. Andy, you wrote a book about law, right? Can you share to us about that book?
Okay, well, I've written several books, each touching on various areas of law. Primarily, I write about the area of immigration and how one uh, gets to immigrate to a country because of the rules that the country has put together governing, coming to a country. So, a good example of how law influences us is, let us say you might live somewhere in a country that's not very safe or not prosperous or dangerous, and you want to move to somewhere that your children, your family could be safer and more prosperous and might be able to get ahead in life. In that instance, what you have to do, what you have to deal with are the rules that the society that you want to go to, that you want to live in, has laid down as the rules for entering that society. And since this is an area where I know most about because I've been practicing in it for quite a while, I can just lay out, for example, if someone is interested in moving, shall we say, to the United States or Canada, the rules are that you can't come to Canada or the United States just by getting on an airplane and arriving. You have to have a visa to come to Canada or the United States, and or there may be countries where a visa is not required by virtue of the close relationship involved. So, for example, if someone lives in the European Union, they may be able to come to the United States or Canada without a visa, but have to have a passport that enables them to enter the country. And they can enter, but only for a certain period of time, 90 days, for example. So they can stay in the United States for 90 days, but then they have to leave at the end of 90 days. So those are examples of rules that govern the area of immigration. And then in that area, there are sort of levels of immigration. So one level is visitor status, another level is working status or studying status. A further level is permanent residence in the country, and the highest status is citizen, where someone can vote and get a passport and travel based on the passport. That's an outline of, for example, the rules that govern immigration-based law practice.
So, Mr. Andy, let's start with getting a tourist visa. What are the first steps that I will take if I'm gonna say I want to go to the US from
Okay.
Canada? So, what are the requirements that I need?
Well, if you're in Canada, we're very fortunate here. I count myself in that category because I work and live in Toronto. Because in going to the United States, you do not need a visa. We're visa exempt. So all you have to do is arrive at the port of entry. Or maybe it's the airport, or it might be New York or wherever you're flying to or driving to. And you have to show your Canadian citizenship by way of your passport. And you have to explain why you're going to the United States. So, for example, you may be going to see a football game or a hockey game, in which case you're a visitor, or you may be going to Disneyland, for example, or Dollyland, whatever it might be. Uh, Maybe you're going to Miami for a vacation. So in that case, you're a tourist and you just show your passport and you explain you're going to be there, shall we say, for 2 weeks. And based on that, they allow you in as a visitor. On the other hand, if you're going to the United States because you're planning to buy a hotel, for example, in that instance, you tell the officer that you're going for business reasons. You're going to meet people who eventually might end up selling you a hotel or finding a hotel for you. And in that instance, the officer will allow you to come in based on your being a business visitor. And they when they allow you in, they tell you for how long you can be in the United States. A default sort of position that they have is if they let you in and they don't say anything, it's usually for 6 months. And then at the end of 6 months, you must be out or leave the United States because your visitor status expires. And you find out about your status. There's a form, it's called I-94. It's a record of your entry where you can look that up online with your passport to find out for what period of time you've been allowed into the United States. And by looking there, you can find out what is the expiry date of your visitor status. That's how it works.
But I can extend it once I expired my visa.
Yes, it is possible to extend your period of authorized stay, and you would extend it by applying to the government asking for permission to stay longer. Usually, in the case of people like from Canada or perhaps from the European Union, it's easier for them to leave and come back again than to apply for an extension of your period of authorized stay because there's a lot of paperwork involved in applying for an extension. And it's so convenient because the country, for example, Canada, is right next door. It's easier just to leave the country and come uh, back into the United States and thereby get, for example, another 6 months of authorized stay.
Yes, I observed that if you are within North America, it's easy to get visa. But let's say, Mr. Andy, you are coming from Asia. Let's say Bangladesh, and people from Bangladesh want to come here in the U.S. or in Canada. What are the requirements they need?
So their requirements are a little different than, say, a Canadian or European might have. And the reason is because there are some more concerns related to their coming as visitors. Among the concerns are, will the people have sufficient resources to look after their period of authorized stay? And what is the likelihood that at the end of their period of authorized stay, they will return back to Bangladesh or whatever other country they came from? And those concerns usually arise because in the past, many people who have come from countries like Bangladesh or other countries far away have arrived and did not leave at the end of their period of authorized stay because they decided they would prefer to live in the United States or Canada than to go back to their country of origin. So, in those circumstances, what is required is they have to go to the consulate, the U.S. consulate or Canadian consulate in the city in Bangladesh, wherever it might be, and convince the officers of A, the reason for the trip, and B, what kind of resources they have to support themselves on the trip, and C, what are the things that promise or guarantee that they will return back to their country of origin at the end of their period of authorized stay. So, for example, sometimes the consular officers will issue a visa to someone who wants to come to the United States or Canada, but they will only issue it when that person has family back home, such as a wife or husband or children or parents, because those people guarantee that relationship with those people guarantees the officer that at the end of the period of authorized stay, the person will return back to their home country. So that's how they decide on whether to allow the person to come to Canada or the United States. Is what are the chances that this person will return versus what are the chances they're going to stay forever, and those chances will be significantly influenced by the relationship they have with existing people back home versus what they may have with people in the United States or Canada. So that's one thing. And the other thing is they'll look at, how much resources, how many resources, or what kind of resources do they have to ensure that once they come to the United States or Canada, that they'll be able to afford to stay there in terms of hotel expenses, taxis, food, clothing, or whatever it is for that period of time that they'll be in the country. And it's only if they can establish that they have the resources necessary that they'll be granted the visa, usually for 6 months, sometimes multiple entry visa, sometimes just a one time entry visa to come to the United States or Canada.
Very well said, Mr. Andy. But before we go on, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Book 101 review on my fourth season, people, fourth season, and my fifth season coming next month. And please, please listen to my feature author of the month of November. He is award-winning and best-selling author, Mr. Gerald Everett Jones. We did a 4 episode this month, so please do listen them all. 4 episodes, people. And of course, my Food 101. I have a lot of podcasts. Food 101 on my fifth season too, coming this December with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Which hotel? Please do listen to us so that you will know where Chef Alessandro working and people by profession, I'm a chef. So I'm truly a chef. So please do listen to Food 101. So, Mr. Andy, can you please promote your books, your projects, or whatever you want to?
Well, let's say this. First of all, regarding immigration, I'm an immigration attorney or lawyer, and I work at Pace Law Firm in Toronto, PACE Law Firm. My area of expertise is in business or investor immigration. So, in those areas, if people have any inquiries or if they would like to perhaps make an application to immigrate either to the US or Canada, or indeed if they have an interest in moving or staying for some period of time in any other country, such as, for example, Portugal in Europe or Antigua in the Caribbean or Panama or whatever, any kind of immigration matters, you're welcome to contact me at PACE, PACE Law Firm. And you just look for Andy once you get on that website and you'll be able to find me.
Yes, definitely. How about your books, Mr. Andy? I think you have empowering books out there.
I do. I have a number of books. You can find my books either by typing in Amazon, typing my name, Andy Semichuk, Semotiuk, Andy Semichuk, on Amazon to find my books. Or another way of finding my books is to go to my personal website, which is myworkvisa.com. Myworkvisa.com. And right there, there's my books in the toolbar. You can click on that toolbar and you can find my books. I've written two books on immigration in particular, the immigrant experience, so to speak, which may be of interest to people who are interested in immigration. I've also written a book helping young professionals who are looking to enter the workforce, and some comedy, some humor books as well.
Definitely. People, let's support Mr. Andy Sonachuk wherever. books, or the law firm itself. So, Mr. Andy, to sum up what are we are talking about, what would be the consequence if you caught up by the government overstaying in Canada or the US?
Well, if you're caught overstaying, the ultimate consequences, you could be barred from, you'd be deported back to your country of origin, and you will be denied access to the country's. Uh, it can be forever or for a period of 10 years, for example, depending on the nature of what you've done and the harm involved. But that would be most likely you would be deported back to your home country, and there would be some sort of bar to reentry to Canada or the US.
Yes, people, follow the rule, follow the law, because there's a consequence if you are not following them. So, Mr. Andy, thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on your program, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon. So, that's it, Mr.